Hi, this is Kevin Baumer, CML Deputy Director. It's March 8th, 2019. That means we are officially on the downhill side of the legislative session beyond day 60. However, I've always said there are two halves to the legislative session, the first 100 days and the last 20. And some of the stuff we'll talk about today will indicate just how far we still have to go in this legislative session. I am going to talk about two key areas today. The biggest one is employment. Three bills that I am working on. Talked about each of them. The first is the Family Medical Leave Insurance Act. That is now introduced as Senate Bill 188, and it is assigned to the Senate Business, Labor, and Technology Committee. We expect it to be heard next week, but it is not yet on the calendar. This is the legislation that would create wage replacement for workers that need to go out on leave to care for family, relatives, sick ones, but also has some more expansive eligibility requirements. Our key interest in this is that, as introduced, it does not fully align with the Family Medical Leave Act and would put employers in a situation of potentially violating the state legislation while complying with the federal law, or vice versa. Amendments have been suggested previous to introduction to the sponsors, and those have not yet, or at least were not in the introduced version of the bill. We'll see what happens in committee. Of equal concern is while the legislation this year will include with an amendment apparently some sort of discount on an employer contribution, it's still reflective of an unfunded mandate. And even if that's done in committee as an amendment, we really believe that this legislation should look like the prior four versions that have been introduced in the prior 4 years, and an employee-funded program for the employee benefit. We don't believe that that will be accepted as an amendment. The League is opposed unless amended to it. We'll have a more detailed breakdown probably by the time the bill comes out of committee next week, as we do expect some amendments will change the introduced version of the bill. That's Senate Bill 188, so stay tuned on that. House Bill 1210, this is the local government minimum wage bill. Was heard in committee this week and passed on second reading in the House today, so it's obviously moving very quickly. CML testified in support of the legislation. It does give local governments, municipalities and county, the authority to have a local minimum wage that's higher than the state. We did ask for and got amendments in the legislation that clarifies that a county can only adopt a minimum wage in the unincorporated part of a county, and also the ability to establish intergovernmental agreements beyond municipal and county boundaries, so you have more of a regional approach, which should help soften some of the concern about pockets of different wages around the metro area. However, or anywhere in the state really. However, there was some key testimony about some issues in the legislation, and CML does expect that there will be some amendments, and that there needs to be some amendments that create some guardrails going forward. We expect, given the pace that the bill is moving, that we're going to have those conversations in the Senate, and being in a position of support, want to work with the sponsors to make sure that it makes sense to everyone when it passes. Senate Bill 85, this is the Equal Pay for Equal Work Act. CML had a position of oppose unless amended. I want to commend the sponsors for really looking at and agreeing to almost every amendment that was asked for by the employers, both public and private. I think out of the 10 that requested, there were 8 adopted. There's a couple things that we would still like to see, but honestly, you can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. CML is going to withdraw our opposition and monitor the bill the rest of the way through. Moving off of employment bills, just one bill that affects a small number of our municipalities, and that is para-related legislation, 27 para-member municipalities. I really want to thank the Speaker of the House, Casey Becker, who is sponsoring House Bill 1217, that really all it does is fix an error that was made in the 11th hour on day 120 of 120 in last year's legislative session. There was not supposed to be an increase to the employees in the local government division. It was inadvertently included. Senate Bill 1217 takes that away. End of story. The local government division will still be funded well within the 30-year time frame. Instead of 15 years, now it'll be 19 years, and it won't impact any other divisions. So we really thank Speaker Becker for carrying that legislation and helping us get that taken care of. It will move through the House here. When it goes over to the Senate, it's sponsored by Senators Lois Court from Denver, Senator Jack Tate from from Centennial. Senator Tate was one of the co-prime sponsors of Senate Bill 200 last year, so he knows what he's talking about on this stuff. That's all I've got for this week.
Hi, this is Megan Deller, Legislative and Policy Advocate with the Colorado Municipal League. The first bill I want to talk about is House Bill 1009. This has to do with the recovery portion of substance addiction. It does a few things, the first being that it expands the applicability of the housing voucher program within the Department of Local Affairs to allow it to apply to those with substance abuse disorders. It also puts in a regulatory mechanism for sober living residences, and then looks at options for potential funding in the future in this particular arena. CML was watching the regulation of recovery residences, or sober living homes, if you will. We are very interested in seeing a state regulatory mechanism. Initially, as the bill was introduced, it had a licensing program that was amended in committee to really have a more of an accreditation with the Colorado Association of Recovery Residences, as well as meeting some standards from the Oxford House. We are still in support of the bill, even with those changes, because we do believe that as long as there is some sort of regulatory mechanism in place, that will be extremely helpful for municipalities moving forward. Another bill I want to talk about that was recently introduced only a couple of days ago has to do with supplying free feminine hygiene products for women that are in custody. There's a bill, House Bill 1224, that's been introduced that requires that these products be made available to female inmates at zero charge, and it does apply to municipal detention facilities, municipal jails. I have asked the municipal jails that I am aware of to see if this is a practice that they already engage in. It is, and so CML will be monitoring this legislation. Also, along criminal justice lines, we do expect to see some legislation that will impact municipal courts with regard to the setting of monetary bail for municipal ordinance violations, as well as when we need to establishing timelines of when we need to have bond hearings. Those bills have not been introduced yet, but CML staff will be following those closely. On the affordable housing front, we expect a bill to be introduced to expand the state low-income housing tax credit program from $5 million to $10 million. CML supported the establishment of this program, as well as its bills to expand that, and we anticipate we'll support this as well, just given the program's success and how it's brought so many affordable housing projects in Colorado.
Hello, this is Morgan Cullen with CML. It was a busy week. We got another busy week ahead of us. I got several transportation bills that I want to update all of you on. The first bill was heard in the Energy Environment Committee earlier this week. It's House Bill 1199. CML is strictly a monitor on this bill right now, but it's something to just bring to your attention. The bill was introduced to create some additional incentives to get Colorado drivers to buy and adopt electric vehicles. And what this bill would do is essentially allow electric vehicles to enter high occupancy vehicle lanes, HOV lanes, regardless of how many passengers they had in their vehicle, and then also provide access to toll roads at half price. So the idea is to promote cleaner and more efficient transportation in Colorado, get people to adopt electric vehicles, and give them incentives to go out and purchase them. So that's the first one that was up in committee earlier this week. We got two new bills introduced. The first one was Senate Bill 144. This bill has to do with motorcyclists at intersections. Right now, apparently the proponents of the bill are claiming that the sensors connected to intersection lights are not being triggered by motorcycles. They're just not large enough and don't have enough weight. And it's creating a situation where the motorcyclist is stranded at the intersection. And what they have proposed in the bill is that they would be allowed, if a motorcyclist is waited for 2 minutes, they'd be able to proceed through the intersection. CML has run this by our Public Works folks and our law enforcement community, and have found not only that there are a number of intersections, a large number of intersections in Colorado that have longer than 2-minute life cycles ingrained into them. But they also are worried that this is going to basically give people license to essentially run red lights, which could create a huge safety hazard across the state. So CML is opposing the bill right now as introduced, and that bill is scheduled to be up on Tuesday, March 12th. And then finally, we have talked a lot about a bill that we knew was coming, and it was introduced earlier this week, House Bill 1221, and that has to do with the regulation of e-scooters, an issue that was never even discussed last session, but over the last year or so, we have seen the proliferation of these e-scooter bikes here in Denver, and other municipalities will probably be seeing them soon as well. The problem or the issue that they're dealing with right now is that scooters are right now under state law classified as toys, and therefore they're restricted to use solely on the sidewalks. This bill would remove them from that classification so that they would be allowed to operate on the streets. What the bill essentially does is it would regulate e-scooters just like bikes and e-bikes, and they would have the same rights and responsibilities on their roadways. CML is taking a monitor position at the moment, but we will be updating our position once we get feedback from our members that they do have under the bill the regulatory authority that they need to properly regulate them within their municipality, and they have the flexibility necessary to meet the needs of not just the e-scooter riders, but drivers, pedestrians, and all the members of their community that will be impacted by them. So those are the 3 bills I've been working on this week and into next week, and I will keep you posted on anything further.
Hi everybody, Brandy DeLang here at the Colorado Municipal League. I have several things to go over today, so let's get started. All right, the first one, we can finally put this to bed, the plumbing bill. We have officially heard the plumbing bill in committee yesterday, so that's Thursday. The amendment to do contemporaneous review as well as continuing education was adopted, so we are formally opposed, or otherwise said we lifted our opposition to the bill. It did get out of committee on a 7-4 vote, and it was heard on the floor this morning. It should head over to the Senate here in the next little while. Second bill is the farm stand bill. If you recall, we originally had some concerns about the bill language preempting all of your land use authorities, so we sat down with the bill sponsor and proponents and asked that she clarify that at very minimum, you guys can continue to permit and license these farm stands. Now, if you recall, the bill in particular really focused on the fact that farm stands could not, in Larimer County, specifically through their land use code, be sited on land that had less than 3 acres. This still allows for any size parcel to be used, but we wanted to at least ensure that permitting and licensing remained intact, and that whomever is wanting to put one of these things up would have to check in with the local government. Next bill that we testified in support in this week was our mining impact bill. If you recall, this is the bill that required operators to identify a reasonable end date on water quality treatment, and also eliminated that self-bonding that could occur. We testified in support yesterday in the Senate Ag Committee, and that bill got out of committee 4-1. So that's headed over to the Senate floor to be debated as well. All right, so let's talk about the big bill that folks have been hearing about, Senate Bill 181. This is the big oil and gas bill that was introduced last Friday on March 1st and has gone through 3 separate committees this week in the Senate, Senate Transportation, Senate Finance, and Senate Appropriations, respectively. So CML staff did testify in support of the bill on Tuesday. We cited our ongoing advocacy for reasonable expansion of local control, but we also acknowledged that there were several folks, several of our members, who are very concerned about this legislation and the rapid pace in which it's going through the Senate. So we wanted to make sure that the bill sponsors and the committee was aware of that. I do want to go over the 5 elements, or the 5 key elements, I should say, of the bill. So the first one is the most obvious for us right now, which is clarifying local government's land use authority, as well as our ability to regulate those nuisance issues related to oil and gas activity. Also, the bill eliminates the preemption standard over municipalities and counties. To regulate, so that we can regulate in partnership with the state in our state agencies. The other thing that the bill does is allow local governments, if they so choose, to impose fines for spills or leaks or emissions from these operations. And then, of course, this also allows you as a local government to collect permitting fees if you so choose. Finally, the last 2 points is, this reforms the makeup of the commission itself, as well as directs the commission to, rather than foster, administer oil and gas. So, and then the last piece here is the changes to the forced pooling practices that we currently are seeing. So, what the application and process looks like. There were also several amendments that were adopted in both Senate Transportation and Senate Finance, so I want to go over those for you. The first one would be to clarify wellbore integrity through the COGCC rulemaking process. The second one would create a worker certification. The third would clarify language around emissions monitoring. The fourth would require a 30-day implementation period after the bill is adopted for the COGCC director to publish criteria for problematic permits that are submitted to the commission. The fifth also directs the COGCC director to compile a report to the General Assembly of next year with recommendations and data on the structure and possibility of professionalizing the COGCC in a way similar to like the PUC. This would also allow for the commission to respond to things like mineral hearing disputes and hire additional deputies and hearing officers. So the final thing I think I would flag is that the Senate Bill 181 will be heard and debated on seconds at some point next week. Likely we're hearing earlier in the week than later. Again, if you have questions or if you'd like to flag some concerns within the bill, please feel free to reach out to me and let me know what those are.
Thanks again for joining us. We'll catch up again on Friday, March 15th, and probably have a lot of stuff to talk about after what will be another very busy week down at the Statehouse.